Okay. Hi, Lisa.
Hi,
Hi,
Ryan.
hi. And hello everyone and welcome to the very first episode of Coffee on the Bridge, right? And for those who don't know me, I'm Ryan, a co-founder of Direct Search. And yeah, so I've had a lot of questions, Lisa, leading up to this, and people are asking, what's the idea? What are we going to have, right? I think the idea behind this series is actually quite simple. Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of meeting some truly remarkable leaders like yourself across the maritime industry, right? And what I realized is while we often hear about companies, strategies, and business results, we rarely get to hear about the person behind the title, you know, and what shaped them, what decisions changed their careers, what lessons did they learn the hard way, and what advice would they give the next generation, right? Advice is a very strong word, but I think let's let's keep it to what tips, right? And this is exactly what Coffee on the Bridge is all about. It's not a corporate interview, it's a conversation about leadership, people, careers, challenges, lessons, and everything in between. And like I said, I couldn't think of a better person to launch this series with, right? And hence we've got Lisa today, right? Today's guest to all my attendees is Lisa Holum, Chief Operating Officer, Asia at OSM Thome, right? Lisa's journey is not straightforward. It's taken her from sailing at sea to one of the most senior leadership positions in global ship management. Along the way, she's become respected. I've seen her speak, and I've heard about her on many platforms, and she's very vocal on leadership, safety, non-negotiable. You will hear that at the later part, right? Crew welfare. I think she's always told me it's all about the people and building cultures where people can thrive. We don't build companies, we build environments where people can speak about, and Lisa, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Coffee on the Bridge, the first one. Right. So Lisa, welcome. And before I start, right? So how's your coffee today? Or
Oh,
or is it coffee or tea?
oh, it is definitely coffee. And I did, in fact, learn to drink coffee on the bridge, on the vessel. I did not drink coffee until I started sailing. And I had sailed for a few months and managed to avoid the coffee. But in the end, as you know, back then there wasn't much rest hours. And in the end, one of the more senior officers told me, Lisa, you need to start drinking coffee if you're going to do this job.
I
So
will start that.
that's good. But I still take my coffee with a lot of milk. It's supposed to
Okay.
taste as little coffee as possible.
Yeah. Nice. I think I'm just like you. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So everyone knows Lisa. You are the COO today, right? But I would like to get back to the younger Lisa who first stepped onto a ship. You know, what did she imagine her future would look like? And what surprised her the most?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan. And sometimes it feels like a long time ago, and other days it feels like it was just yesterday. Um, of course, I started first in the Norwegian Navy, and that was a complete new situation for me. So I did 1 year there, and then I went to study maritime, and I did 3 years. And then they sent me out on my first ship, and I joined the ship in Venezuela.
Oh, wow.
There were some Norwegian officers on board. And when I joined, I was very determined that my life was going to be about sailing. And I was very determined that I really wanted to make a career and do a good job, being one of the very few women at the time sailing. Um, my focus was also as a woman, you are acutely aware that at some point, your clock is ticking and you most likely would not be able to sail forever. So that was something that also stuck with me very much when I started sailing. That
Right.
that there's a time limit how long I'm going to be able to do it.
Right. No, no, I completely agree with you, and hence my next question. If I met 18-year-old Lisa today, right, what advice would she ignore but eventually realize was right?
Oh, there was a lot of them. When you start sailing as a female in a very international industry, and I think that goes when you start working as well. Um, People are not shy of giving you advice.
Oh, yeah.
And I received a lot of advice. And some of the advice that annoyed me the most, that I really didn't feel like following, was particularly related to how I was dressing. So there was a lot of advice on what to wear, what not to wear, that how big and baggy the sweater should be, how long the pants should be, how I
Right.
should keep my hair. And then there was also a lot of advice around how I would sound on the radio on the vessel. So I was told I should keep a low voice, not speak very fast, not have a very squeaky voice. And
Wow. Yeah.
at the time, I felt they were trying to change me from who I really was
Right.
into somebody I wasn't sure I wanted to be. But later, I started to realize that these were actually excellent advice. And I probably passed on the same advice to others throughout my career, both men and women, actually.
Right. Right. Right.
So, yeah, voice and clothes, definitely some
Right.
advice I listened more to later in life.
Wow, wow. I think that's an eye opener, right? But you see now I would like to speak to Lisa now, right? Have you ever made a decision that was unpopular internally, right? But you know it was the right thing to do. Have you been like in that position, right? That I should not have done it, or it's not popular. What will people think? But you know it was the right thing to do. Have you made a decision like that?
Yes, I think in a leadership position, you make decisions like this almost on a daily basis. You know that many of the decisions you make are going to be tough, they're not always going to be liked. And you have to balance many different aspects before you make a decision. And a lot of and being a leader is not about being popular or winning a popularity contest. It's about knowing and it's about knowing what's right.
Right.
And um, I remember when I was being promoted into some of my earlier positions, I did ask my leader at the time, and I asked some colleagues in the leadership team, what made you pick me? Because I didn't really have that classic background of technical. And one of my good colleagues told me that it's because, Lisa, you seem to have a very strong compass and of what's right and what's wrong. And that's what made the leadership team place some trust in you that you could take on such a big role. And this started when I was very young, started just working ashore. I had an excellent colleague who was a bit older, more experienced, and she pulled me aside and she told me very early on, you need to find out very early now who are you? What do you stand for? What's right? What are your absolute non-negotiables in business? And you need to stick to them
Right.
because you will need them as your guiding principles as you move along in your career. And that has really stuck with me and followed me throughout. And that helps me every single day.
Mm.
Because if you know and you feel secure that you know what's right, you can stand and make those tough decisions, even though you know they may be unpopular or will cause some noise and disturbance in the time. But as long as you know that they're right, you'll be able to walk through it and come through it in a good way later down the line.
I think you're absolutely right. Leaders are not parachuted in from somewhere. We don't come from Mars, we don't come from Pluto. We're human beings, right?
Mm.
And I think to know what is right or wrong is the first step before you can execute something, right?
Yes.
And I think we can't take the navigator out of you, because I heard words like compass and guiding and guiding principles. For those of you who don't know, Lisa actually sailed on a gas vessel, right? And yeah, so I think you're absolutely right, and I think I wrote something recently, right? We promote the people who have done well, but have we given enough training to them to be managers, to lead,
Mm,
and sometimes just because they do well doesn't mean they can lead well, right? And sometimes the best leader might not be the best performer because he's human,
mm,
right?
mm.
And you have to be first human and do to people what you like to be done onto you, right? And
Absolutely.
that leads to my next question, right? People often say leadership is lonely.
Mm,
I felt it sometimes, right? but
mm.
but but I'm still learning, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. Is that actually true?
Yeah, I think to a certain degree it's true, but I think you can also make it less lonely for yourself. And that's maybe been some of the most valuable lessons for me, because when I was sailing, yeah, I'll admit it, I was very lonely. Being a woman on a ship far out in the ocean, you're the only one from your nationality, the only one from your culture. You can communicate in English, but you know that what I would try to say in my language, in English, but with my background and my interpretation, would be received completely differently by somebody else.
Yes, yes, yes.
Although we would stand there and speak English, they would put different meaning into my words because of their cultural background. So sailing is a lonely profession when you're a woman, particularly, but I think it's the same for men. It's not a super social life. But then when you come ashore and you walk through the ranks and you are faced with different challenges throughout the years, you also build up a stronger tolerance for making decisions and sticking by them and making sure that, yeah, and every decision may not be the right one, but sometimes you just have to make a decision,
Right, right,
regardless.
right, 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 right.
And I think also as you come into a higher position, yes, the decisions to make becomes more and more difficult, more and more challenging. But the smart thing to do, what I've learned, is also build up a team of people around you that can give you open advice and feedback, that you can trust and listen to, so that when you're faced with a difficult dilemma, you can always work with your team, get their feedback, get different points of view, make sure you don't have all the same types of people around you, but
Yeah, yeah.
different people with different backgrounds, different views. Get those inputs because it helps you to then, when you do make a decision, you know that you've heard different sides, and you can make that decision. But I'm not saying that it will never be lonely. Of course, at times that is a lonely position to be in when you have to make those decisions.
Right. No, no, I think I agree with you. To sum up what you've said, sometimes indecision is worse than no decision, right?
Yes.
And every point of our lives, we all make decisions, right? And we are truly accountable for them, right?
Yeah,
And I also understand team building is something that you mentioned, right? But have some diversity, not build a team of yes men, right? And
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. If one's jumping over the mountain and then everyone else is just jumping over the mountain, right? So it's important. And I tell you, I've worked with a lot of Norwegians, a lot of
Mhm.
Scandinavians, and you are absolutely right, because I've sat in some meetings with them. It's like, yeah, 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 yeah. So and they're being direct, right? But and there's no two ways about it. But like you said, it can be misinterpreted sometimes. Like,
Mhm.
we and that's my experience with Scandinavians, right? There's no sugarcoating. It's a yes or a no. And a complete yes comes with four yeahs. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. And misinterpretation in leadership is also a very big factor today, right?
Mm,
And I always tell people when I speak, there is common sense, there's common logic, and there's business logic, right?
mm,
Common logic, 1 + 1 is 2, right? But when it comes to business logic, you have to sometimes do things that can help you 3 years from now, 5 years from now. You're not solving a current problem, but you are trying to solve a greater problem at hand, and you tend to make decisions that are not popular, right? And
Yes.
and yeah, yeah. Okay. So this is something I've heard from you speaking, right? And you've said before, Lisa Holum's words, safety is non-negotiable, right?
Yep.
But in reality, shipping is a commercial business. And,
Yep.
and have you ever felt tension between doing what's commercially attractive and doing what's unquestionably safe? That gray area that you have. Are you going to please the charterers? Are you going to please the shippers? Or are you going to ensure that the crew that you have are questionably safe? No question at all. So what's your take?
Yeah, I think, Ryan, you raise an interesting point because in shipping, everything we do has a risk to it. I don't think there's any operation that you do in shipping on a vessel which is unquestionably safe.
Yeah,
Even getting out of bed in the morning may not be safe.
absolutely.
So there's always about finding that right balance. And it goes back again to what I'm referring to when I said that you need to have that strong compass within you where you know where your limits are. And I think in today's situation, in particular, if you look at the Strait of Hormuz or the area around it, the question comes up quite often, right? Can you take your ships into certain ports? Is it safe? Is it not safe? And you have to make those decisions based on the information you have available. So, of course, there are certain situations on board a ship which is so easy to make a decision, right? Do you allow your crew to go into a tank that is inerted? No, definitely not. There are no shortcuts, right? You can never allow that. Would you allow your crew members to do work in the height without having followed all the precautions and the
Yeah.
safety instructions? No, absolutely not. So there are many of these things that you know where the limit is, and it's fine. And then, as you say, you come to some situations where is it safe to sail through the Strait of Hormuz today, or is it not? Is it safe to call certain ports, or is it not? And those are things that change almost on a daily basis during these days.
Yeah.
And this is where you need a lot of information. You
Mm.
need a good organization that helps you with that intel and that information. And then you have to make your decisions. And then again, if you look at it from a safety perspective and you look at calculated risk, very rarely we come into a position where we are not sure. It's usually quite easy to make out what's acceptable risk and what's not.
Right. No.
Um, but the safety of the crew, yeah, that's non-negotiable. Absolutely non-negotiable. And that's what I love about this industry, that there's a respect for that decision and there's an understanding. Also, even if there is commercial pressure, once you evaluate the risk and you have processes in place for that, that's part of your safety management system. It's quite easy to come to that conclusion and justify it and then follow it.
Mm. But have you again? It's not there. But I just came up with this question, right?
Mm,
Because I have sat in a meeting before where a company was there trying to talk about underwater hull cleaning through robots,
mm,
right? And the ship management side, they were very happy with it. They're like, wow, it's good, diverse lives can be saved. And without mentioning too much, a charterer walked in and said, okay, how long is this going to take? With
mm,
divers, 12 hours, but with this machine, it takes 24 hours. And
mm,
then the charterer asks who's going to bear the cost,
mm,
right? You see, then again, from a ship management perspective, the right thing to do was not to have divers because you save lives. But from a charterer's perspective, it's the cost, right?
mm.
And I'm sure you have heard many times where masters have taken the call to go against charterers and say, no, it's just not safe. We're just going
Yeah,
to keep the ship here till it subsides. So my take, right, which brings us to the next question, right? We spoke about the right balance in safety, all right? And in the airline industry, when I speak to pilots, they say even if it's 99.99%, the planes don't fly, right? So we need to find the right balance in safety. And you were spot on in saying there is nothing in shipping that is unquestionably safe. No, it's you have to, a decision you take today,
Mm.
3 years later, with different sets of information, people can say you were wrong. But at that
Absolutely.
time, you could only do with what information you had, and that's
Yes.
how critical shipping is. So, where do you think good leaders draw that line?
Well, I think, of course, as you say, as a leader, you have to evaluate case by case, and you have to look at uh, the full set of picture, and in many ways, having a sailing background into the role that I'm in makes that easier because
Yes,
you found yourself in most of those situations before yourself, and then working in this industry for many years, you've seen many outcomes, good or and bad.
yeah,
And that helps you build up kind of your own library, risk library as well, as to
yes,
what
yes.
what is acceptable risk and what's not. And then one of the things that maybe we don't talk about enough in this industry is you have to go and speak to your seafarers. And
Mm,
fortunately, I think this has become a very good thing now with all these war risk areas, is that you can't force anybody to go anywhere that they don't
no,
want to go.
no,
So then you have to go back and you have to speak to your seafarers as well, those who will actually do the job, and get their perspective and their input, and say, what do you think? Would you feel comfortable doing this or not? Because you are on the scene, you will
yeah,
be there in the weather, you know your ship. What do you feel comfortable doing?
right.
And I think that conversation to be had between ship and shore is extremely important, and we can never forget that.
No, no,
We
absolutely.
we we have to have those conversations with people, and I think they appreciate it. It's not to put them on the spot and
Mm,
make them sole responsible, but it's about having the conversation and listening, getting people's perspectives and input, and then you make a decision. And in shipping, the great thing is also that the master is the one who decides on his ship, and there's nothing I can say or do to force him one way or the other. He is the decision maker, and as a ship manager, it's our job to back him and his decision.
you're absolutely right. I think the more people that tune in and listen, it's a very refreshing perspective. But then again, if you lay it down on the table, it's what it's supposed to be done, right?
Mm.
It's not rocket science. Lisa did not go to NASA and come back with this
No.
information. It is all Lisa's experience, right?
Mm.
And again, going back to the compass of doing the right things, and ensuring that, like you said, we cannot be totally sure, but with the given information that we have and the right conversations, we can take the right decision,
Mm.
right? I think that's on this topic, right? I would like to move on to what's your past, right? But taking you out of there and asking you this, what's something people sure think, right? To I'm sure in OSM you've got a healthy pool of seafarers, but you also have, I mean, ex-seafaring staff in the office, but you
Mm.
also have support functions, technical, purchasing, accruing, where some of them might not have sailed, right?
Mm.
What's something people a short thing makes seafarers happy, but actually doesn't? You know,
Oh.
Netflix.
Oh, let
Yeah,
me ask my 30,000 seafarers. I'm sure I will have 30,000 different answers.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Because some of the regulations, some of this are set by people who probably, like you said, might not have the seafaring experience. So for people like
yeah.
us, what do you think that we think that makes them happy, but actually doesn't? What do you think?
Mm. Well, to start with the easy point, when I come
Mm,
on board the ships, I always ask them, what's the most important thing for you? And there are usually three and four things, to be fair, that comes up very regularly. And first thing, internet. Absolutely, they really love internet, and the better internet connection, the better it is. Then it's the food, very basic, but good food. I think that's extremely important. And then to get their salary on time and as promised, and not do never mess with people's salaries. And then what's maybe I find very interesting as well is, and I think that says a lot about seafarers' pride in their job, is that they get very upset if they get poor tools or spare parts that are not up to the quality that they expected. And that's quite interesting, I think, that comes right up there with the food and the internet and the salary. They also want to make sure that they get good quality spare parts and tools so that they can do a good job. But if you look at then, what do we as shipping companies try to give them that maybe they don't care so much about? Is I think we talk a lot about what we can give to women in particular, that will make them more happy on board the vessels. And there is where we maybe get too creative at times, and particularly people who have not sailed on board the ships. And we try to reinvent things that maybe they don't really care that much about. And at
Right.
least for me, when I was sailing, I didn't really care that much if I had my own changing room, or if I had a boiler suit that was tailor made for me as a woman, or specifically made gloves. Yeah, these are nice things to have, but honestly, and I've said this before as well, is that ultimately when you are coming on board to do a job, you want to be treated with respect and fair, and you want to be safe on board your ship, and you want to be given that respect in doing your job. And some of the other fluff, that's out there now, doesn't really, at least
Yeah.
for me, it didn't really matter quite a lot. Um, because you're there, you want to do a good job, you want to get promoted, you want to build a career, and you want to have good colleagues, and you want to feel safe.
Right. No,
And
no.
and I think that's quite important. Um, Maybe also a lot of the training that we keep pushing on board the ships, we in the office thinks that a lot of this training is very useful, very helpful,
Mm, mm,
while maybe some of our seafarers feels that this is not so relevant, not so useful spent
right.
time that
Right.
they get.
No, no. I
But
think I agree. Sorry, you were saying something. Sorry.
no, I
Uh,
think it's great if people comment afterwards if they agree.
yes, yes,
Would
yes.
be excellent to have comments given.
No, I think agree. Whether it's office or sea, never play with you see, it's a financial agreement that we have. Somebody is
Mm.
there spending time for whatever they were expected to get. So never delay on that, and basic, right? You've seen I have friends coming from Europe, they say lunch we always have a sandwich and then we get back to work, right? But you see how is it like in Singapore? When
Yeah.
it's lunchtime, everyone, wow, good food. I want to try this. I want to try that. Wow, the brave the hot sun, and so yeah, I think. And today, I've heard comments from shipping companies saying that Ryan, giving them internet will get them on the iPad, which means there'll be negligence and accidents, right? And then my question is, can you be without your phone for 2 hours? You can't, right?
No.
The minute you lose your phone, I'm like, oh no, I'm lost. I've lost the sense to live. I've lost the purpose of life. Where's my phone, right? So I think again, like you said, the compass of doing what is right, what is wrong. You got to put, whether you have that seagoing experience, if you're able to put yourself in their shoes,
Mm.
right? And yes, every time there's a problem, another seminar, let's do another training,
Mm.
but whether it's what they want, we don't know, because the best carpenter with the worst tools will
Mm.
still make the worst product. So it's also giving people the right tools to excel, right? So yes, yes, I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree. In I think the next question is very related to the first one. In your opinion, what does genuine crew welfare look like beyond internet access and better food? So we spoke about better tools, right? But besides genuine crew welfare? What would you say with just one or two words?
Yeah. So I think, uh, uh, and here's also another thing I think people don't always think about, because who is the most important person for a seafarer? That's their crewing PIC in the
Right.
office. So, and I think knowing that you have a good relationship with that person, that that person care about your development, your welfare, your life on board and at home, that is very, very critical.
Yeah.
That there's a person ashore that knows you, that wants what's best for you, and will look after you, so that if something happens at home and you need to get home,
Yeah.
or something happens on board, that you feel that you can pick up the phone or send an email or a message to a person ashore, and that's someone that you know and trust, will then respond and react and look after you. I think that's extremely important, because you sail with different people. Your life happens on board and at home, and you need to know that there's someone there to reach out to that cares about you. And I think this is very, very important. I think that's an important welfare part of it, that you have your contact point, someone who follows you through your career,
Yeah.
and that wants what's best for you.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. I
Mm.
speak, I speak to a lot of seafarers every day
Mm.
who want to come ashore, and I know on their CV they put there as Anglo-Eastern, but when I ask them who do you work for, they say they are manning agency. So I said,
Yes.
no, I said no, that's where the journey started, but
Yeah.
you now work for someone else, and that detachment is like,
Mm.
again, you if you don't know who you're working for, and then you know who's going to look after, you need to have that relationship. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, yes,
And I think sometimes people underestimate how important that crewing team is, and how much contact they have with their seafarers, and how much they know about their lives, and how much they care about them, because they're not
absolutely
just
right.
a number on the crew list.
Yeah,
They are
yeah,
they are their lifeline,
right.
and they work very closely together.
And I think it's also one of the reasons why we started this, because what people crew do for seafarers ashore is what we do for people ashore,
Mm.
right? And you don't look for me only when you have a need, right?
Yes.
We build relationships. We know who you are, and
Yeah.
along the way, we match you to the right opportunities, not just for your
Yes.
career, but for your personality as well. Yeah. So,
Exactly.
so I think it's important that that relationship, that I'm here, but I've got someone there who will
Yes.
let my family know I'm well. I have
Yes.
someone to talk to. Right. This one is
And
very,
you're, yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, Ryan. And the fact that you can then match up a seafarer with the right ship for that person, with the right team on board, that's real welfare. That you team up people that you think will do well together and complement each other to make a great team. That it's a ship that you can learn from and grow into, and where you feel comfortable. Because different stages in our career, we have different challenges and different opportunities. And for me, particularly, I remember I had fantastic crewing people where I could ask them, I'd really like to do a dry docking. I would really like to learn from the experience of preparing a ship for dry docking and then doing the dry docking, where they worked with me and found me a good vessel. I got to join that vessel well in advance. I got
wow,
to work there. I got to take it for the dry dock and take her out after the dry dock. So they found me that flexibility, and I learned so much from those dry dockings that I got to do. And I think maybe that's also my advice to seafarers today, is don't be afraid to reach out to the crewing team, express some wishes, and don't be afraid to take on an older vessel or a more challenging vessel. I know that I was chasing new ships, and the joy of taking a new vessel out. But actually, the ships that I learned the most from were the more challenging ones, but where you really built a great team, on the leadership team and on board, and where you got to solve so many problems and you learned so many things that
right.
I enjoy today. That experiences that has taught me a lot.
Fantastic. So we replace the sea in comfort to the sea in challenge, right? So
Yes.
yes, come out and I think we only learn when we're challenged,
Yeah.
right? Comfort is just doing the same thing every day, right? So I've got another one for you, right? Can I know organizations are built on multi layers, multi facets. They've got different leaders and different business units, right? But do you think one poor manager can undo 10 years of culture?
No, I don't think so. Not if you built a proper culture. I think they can do some harm. You might lose some good people because people who comes from a strong, good culture will not put up with someone coming with a completely different view on it. But I don't think if you built a good company culture, I don't think that one manager, one poor manager can destroy that. That means you haven't built a solid culture at all,
Yes,
if that's enough to destroy it.
absolutely. I was speaking to someone and saying that, when people leave, they kind of rock my boat. And the same advice I got was that, Ryan, if someone can rock your boat, then you've not built a boat.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
a great
focus
analogy.
on building the boat, and
Yeah.
then yes, along the way we will meet good, the bad, and the
Yes.
ugly. But
Yes.
how fast you react is important. Okay, now I'm going to come to Lisa's what we spoke about, right? Just hypothetically, if tomorrow morning shipping achieved a perfect 50-50 gender balance, what problems will still remain?
Oh. That's a difficult one. Well, I think we have ships today with 50-50 balance. And I think you will see that they run very well. That's one thing. But the other thing is that, would you have less commercial pressure in the industry? Probably not. I think women are equally competitive and driven to find good solutions. So I think the industry, to a certain degree, would be the same as it is. I mean, would a ship be 100% safe to be on just because it was 50-50 gender balance? No, probably not. Um, would we not have any accidents? No, we would for sure have accidents still. But maybe we would have a bit more empathy in the industry. Not sure. Um, and with a 50-50 gender balance, I do believe, though, that maybe we would have, maybe our development would move a little faster. We're known to be quite conservative industry, although I think that's changing very fast now. And I think it's changing also because we've become better at having a more diverse industry. We've opened up a lot in the last 10 years for different views, different gender, different nationalities. We've become a lot more tolerant for differences in the industry, which I think it's helping it a lot in growing and developing. But would all problems go away? Absolutely not. And then it would be a very boring place to be if all the challenges disappeared.
Yes, yes, yes. What
Um,
what's the conversation around women in maritime that we are still getting wrong? I've got one. Let me start this. Right. I
yeah.
think I hear companies saying let's give them chances. And I'm a strong advocate. We don't give them chances, we give them opportunities.
Yes.
Right. And besides what I just said, what are the conversation around women in maritime that we're still getting wrong? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think, and I've said this before probably, but when I started sailing, I used to be told a lot, oh, yeah, yeah, we have a woman on board. And the reason we have a woman on board is because then the atmosphere becomes much better. And then
Wow.
people start to shower and they
Yeah,
smell
yeah.
good and they behave nicer. And I felt this was so unfair because I didn't come on board to make people start to shower. I came on board to build my career and get my work done. And
Absolutely.
I'm really happy that in the last years, that has completely stopped, and people are more talking about now that we can't exclude 50% of the population and still
Mm.
think that we will be winning as an industry and attract the best people. if we don't attract from the entire population. But then, of course, there are parts of maritime that makes it a bit more challenging because you're away a lot. So maybe with the traditional um, motherhood expectations, it's maybe not as attractive to stay on board the ships for that long. But I think what we've seen in the latest years is that young people maybe don't sail for so long as they used to some years back. People now maybe do 5 to 10 years of sailing, and then they move to shore positions where they continue. And they do that for some years, and then they go back to sailing again. And there's more flexibility now to move between ship and shore, which I think the entire industry is benefiting from a lot. And that's what I think is the discussion we're still not having enough in this industry is
Yeah.
take the best one, regardless if it's male or female, put them on board. And the more equality you have on board the ships, the better people will also perform and deliver. And then open up the opportunity to do shore jobs. Because it will benefit a lot the shore organizations as well to have had people that sail. And then you can go back to sailing if that's what you want to do, or you can continue ashore if that's what you want to do. And I think that's what we're maybe not talking about enough. And we see the company who does this, who opens up for that flexibility, they are very successful in retaining their female seafarers. And women on board build each other up as well, and they build a very strong community on board, and they support each other. And I have to say, it's a fantastic career choice to be sailing and learning this industry. And whether you continue to sail or you move ashore later, it's really a fantastic industry to be a part of.
I think you summed it up really well, and I really wanted to hear this, from you. So thank you. I've got another one. I think we're running out of time, so I'll try to be quick with my questions, right? Do women need more confidence, or do organizations need to recognize confidence differently?
Oh, yeah, twofolds, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
first, yes, yeah, let's have more confidence as women. Let's negotiate better on the salaries. Let's not be afraid to be a little unpopular by raising our requests. Don't be afraid to call the company and say, I'd like to do that ship instead of the one you have just proposed. You know, typically, maybe we are afraid to be seen as difficult or demanding or troublemakers. So maybe we're not demanding enough. I see that ashore as well. Where maybe male colleagues are better at negotiating salary and pushing for more salary or titles or positions. Women are still not there, that they're asking for enough. So as a leader, I also try to be mindful of that. And I remind my colleagues of the same, that if you want women to progress up, you also need to encourage them more.
Right.
And you cannot take it for granted that they will come and ask for a position. Maybe you have to go and actively push them to say, have you considered applying for this open position that we have? And my encouragement to the women who's listening is always negotiate your salary proposals.
Right, right, right. I think, like you said, it's twofold. Create an environment for them to speak up, not just ask them to speak up and then stigmatize when they want to speak up. Yeah, yeah. Okay, fantastic, fantastic.
And whether we're creating, as you're saying, also creating enough room for people to have that confidence. Yeah, I think we know that there are a lot of biases within ourselves, both men and women, that we tend to speak over women when they raise their voice or they raise their comments in a meeting. We know that. So I encourage women to stop and tell people that now I'm speaking, so please hold your voice until I'm done. And I think it's important that all men and women recognize and are aware of this bias and intervenes when we see it. So yeah, I think creating a good environment for women to speak up and build their confidence in is very important as well.
Correct. So it's two folds. One, they is the way we look at them, and I remember sitting in a hiring company who said, "Oh, I have a lady who's this. Oh, how young is she? What if she wants to start a family?" I say, "What? Why is that a cause of concern for you? You know,
Yeah,
if choose the best person and be
yeah,
supportive, and if whatever they want to do, because the more we stigmatize, and then
yeah,
we cannot complain on the other side that they're not going to come, right? So, like you said,
yeah,
be assertive, not angry, be in control. You know, it's your own career. Give them chances, give them opportunities, let them take what is good for them, hire the best person, right?
yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now we'll move out of that. Lisa, you know, I think you believe that over time, what we think changes, how we think changes, and what we believe changes, right? So, what's one belief you have completely changed your mind about the last 10 years? What's
Oh,
one belief that?
yeah. You know, um, I used to think that when you're a woman in a male-dominated industry, you just have to work harder. You have to prove yourself more. You have to just put in the extra effort. You're gonna just have to ignore those comments. It's just part of being in the industry. And I used to kind of stick with that belief for quite some time until my daughter, who was then 10 years old, I made a comment once about something at work, and I said, well, that's just how it is to be a woman in this industry. And my daughter turned to me and she said, Mom, what are you saying? You sound like a dinosaur. Why should women have to accept
Yeah,
something in this industry that a man doesn't have to accept? And yeah, I have stopped that way of thinking. It
correct,
was a way of thinking that I grew up with, and that's completely gone from my mind at this moment.
right.
Because why should a woman have to work harder or prove herself differently than a male colleague? Everybody should have exactly the same opportunities.
No, I think jokes aside, sometimes the best advice comes from the least expected places, you know. But that also goes to show how mindsets are changing, right?
Yes.
And as leaders, we also need to adapt to the new mindsets,
Yeah.
right? And I like to ask you this: what's a compliment you never forgot receiving?
Oh, uh,
It should be
tricky
fast
one.
because you've never forgotten
Yeah.
it, you know. What's
Yeah.
a compliment? I know you've got many. Just think of the one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. And I had a boss, and I always thought that I was this seen as this sweet, smiley, friendly person. And I had a
Until they
boss,
know
and
you.
yeah, and he came to me and he said, and he was quite a lot more senior in position, and he came to me and he offered me a position within the company where I was, and he said, I'd like to take on this position. And I asked him, what? Why? And he said, I need someone who's really heavy handed and who's not afraid to push through and get it her way, no matter what. And I
Is that
looked
like,
at him and I said,
is
but
that me?
why? Yeah, why are you thinking of me? And he said,
Yeah,
what? Don't you understand yourself that you can be extremely heavy-handed and that you are quite when you are determined to achieve something, you just don't stop,
yeah,
and you take no prisoners in that position. And that was, I saw it as a compliment because I didn't think that people saw me that way at all.
no, I think it's sometimes, like you said, it's really good to hear from other people
Mm,
besides just listening to the voice inside, because it
mm.
only tells you what you want to hear, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's fantastic. But I think I've heard about and I've seen you enough, so I know when you want to say something, you would want to say something. So yeah, if everyone who worked with you described you in one word, not what, but what would you hope that word is?
I would hope that that word would be fair. Um, I think that's very important for me.
Mm.
Business is business, work is work. But I certainly hope that everybody in my team
Yeah.
sees me as fair in the organization.
It goes back to the compass of right and wrong, right?
Yeah,
You just have to be fair. Whoever
yeah,
you are, whatever nationality, whatever the color of your skin, I need to be fair. I'll be fair, given the
yeah,
circumstances and the information that we have. Right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What's something you wish more CEOs admitted publicly? It could ruffle some feathers, but what would you wish that, what's something you wish more CEOs admitted publicly?
Well, I think CEOs today are very, very open and honest. Social media and the presence and the openness that's out there and the expectation towards the
Mm.
CEO to be very open is that. But I think it's also fair to say that when you're the CEO, your job is to make sure your company is thriving
Mm.
and it's operating well and it's also delivering results.
Right.
And I think that's sometimes unpleasant to talk
Mm.
about, but that is still ultimately your role and responsibility as a CEO. And
Right.
it's nicer to talk about the softer aspects of the job,
Right.
but still there are tough
Mm.
decisions to be made in order to safeguard a company
Correct.
and drive it
Right.
and make sure that it's also delivering financial results at the end of the day.
As all the good examples come with shipping, some of the bad examples also come with shipping. They always say before your ship sinks, you need to let go of deadweight, right? And I think the overall person is in charge of the ship is a CEO, right?
Yeah.
He's the captain of the ship, and sometimes he has to make decisions to keep the ship still sailing,
Yes.
and sometimes they have to be more open about admitting some
Yeah.
of this publicly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Once I know you have spoken to a lot of people, including myself, but what's one piece of career advice that sounds good, but you don't believe? Oh,
Oh,
huh?
yeah. Um, I see a lot now, and of course, I watch LinkedIn and social media posts as well, and I see a lot of times now the advice is that it's not the hardest worker that gets noticed or that gets credit. It's
Yes.
more about how you package it, how you present yourself. And I have to say that doesn't sit well with me. I think that's really bad advice. If you think you can do a good job, have a great career, and not put in the hard work, I think you've misunderstood something
Correct.
fundamentally. And as a leader, yeah, I see who puts in the hard work. If you think leaders don't see it, you're very badly mistaken. We see all the hard work that's taking place, and we're noticing and we're appreciating it.
Mm.
And it is a part of having a career is actually putting in the hard work. It's not just about the fluffy words at the presentation.
Oh, I cannot agree more. I was once told by my mentor very early on, if you're good, the company fights to keep you. But
Yes.
if you are not, you fight to keep the job with the
Yeah.
fluffy words, with the
Yeah.
package. I do this, I do that. I'm doing something that is not seen. I'm there. I'm morally there. So you're absolutely right. Hips don't lie and results don't lie. So you need to be clear that that hard work. But now with AI and all that, obviously you can mix in some smart work if you're commercially in marketing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but then again, hard work I think is the basis of everything that's to do with you and grow, right?
Yeah.
This is my favorite question. What's one question I should have asked, but I have not?
Oh. Um, oh, I don't know, Ryan. I think you asked so many good, challenging questions today. You really put me on the spot here. So
That's all right.
I don't
No,
have any more questions to recommend for you.
it's the
But you
first
are the
one.
one interviewing
Yes,
a
yes,
lot, right? And
yes,
interviewing
yes.
candidates for positions. Are there any favorite questions that you have?
I think I think the one question that I would have asked is, I want to, in a company where there are 100 people. right?
Mm,
Even in ship management, there are 8 superintendents, 9 superintendents. Not everybody becomes the fleet manager.
mm.
Not everybody becomes the technical director. Not everybody becomes the COO, right? And what do you think is that one or two skills that sets everyone apart?
I think it's your ability to handle people. Um, you can be an excellent vessel manager, but once
Mm.
you want to step into the role as a fleet manager or a marine manager, you have to be able to get the best out of the people around you. And that means that you may not be right every time.
Right.
You may not be the best vessel manager, but you
Yeah.
have to be able to bring the best out of the people that reports to you or that is around you. That means you may have colleagues around you as well, and you have to be able to make them want to work with you, want
Right.
to support you, and want to support your team. And I think that's the big differentiator of those who will make it up through the ranks. Because if you make too many enemies in your lower positions, you will struggle to move ahead later.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. I've met fantastic vessel managers who could
Mm.
handle machines with their eyes
Mm.
closed, but
Yeah.
cannot sit down and avoid the confrontational topic. Or they, and I said companies pay people for not what they do, but also what they can bring.
Mm.
What's the
Yeah.
value they give to other people. So yeah, it's fantastic. Now, because it's coffee on the bridge, let's spill the beans. When I say spill the beans, just one word. Okay, in one word. For Lisa, bridge room or boardroom?
Bridge, definitely.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee,
Email or phone?
phone, every
Yes.
time.
Every time. Leadership from a book or leadership experience?
Leadership experience. So many bad books out there.
Perfect candidate who ticks 10 boxes or the perfect attitude who ticks 6 boxes?
Perfect attitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't replace attitude. Mm.
Morning person or night owl?
Oh, definitely morning person.
Yes.
I wake
Okay.
up 5 a.m.
Fair. Ooh. One word that defines great leaders. One word.
Oh, um, honest.
Yes. If it
Yes.
if it if it's from a leadership book, probably said empathy and all the other things, but I think honesty is it, right? This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it because
Yeah.
this is what I think. That's it. No two
Yeah.
ways about it, right?
Yeah.
One word that destroys culture.
Um, being unfair.
Yeah,
I think if people feel that there's no fairness, it's very difficult to build
right.
any good culture. Mm.
Absolutely right. Everybody wants fair treatment. Everybody wants to give
Mm.
their best and expect the best, right?
Yeah.
But not, like you said, not everybody gets the best. So you got to be fair in distributing your resources evenly. Fantastic. I have this exercise with my children, unfortunately, because that's what they study in school. But now I'm going to have it with you. Complete this sentence. Shipping needs more.
Women.
I should have asked. Finish this for me. Success means,
um, being happy.
yeah, right. Ah, I that's it. That's it. It's not what you have at the bank. It's not what you wear on your wrist. It's how
Mm.
happy you are with what you have. I think that's fantastic. So I've got two questions. And since you're my first guest on Coffee on the Bridge, all my podcasts will have these two questions. So I'll have it for you. 20 years from now, right, when people look back at your career, what do you hope they'll say about the difference you made? What do you hope? 20 years from now, forward.
Yeah, I hope that they will say that I made it a good place to work, that people felt successful, and they felt that they achieved their goals and ambitions under my leadership.
Fantastic. Lovely. Lovely. So imagine a young professional, probably like me, is watching this right now, wondering whether they'll make it, right? What's One lesson you hope they remember long after this conversation ends.
Yeah, I hope that they remember always negotiate.
Yes, you never ask, you never know.
No,
Right. Yeah,
always
yeah.
negotiate. Mm.
Lisa, it's just 1 hour from where we started. I would like to thank you so much. Yes, not just for your time today, but for your honesty, your openness, and for sharing experiences that I know will resonate with so many people watching. You know, one thing I always believe is that great conversations shouldn't end when the cameras stop rolling. It should continue. It's not a spectacle, but it's everyday life, right? If today's discussion has given you something to think about, I would strongly encourage you to continue the conversation with your colleagues, your teams, and your friends. Leadership isn't built in isolation, and neither is it in learning. It's in great conversations, right? And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for spending this time with us. I hope you've taken away at least one idea. Lisa has given many. I've got 2 pages, to be honest. At least one idea, one lesson, or one perspective that you'll carry into your own career. This is only the beginning of Coffee on the Bridge. We will continue bringing you more conversations. I'm so happy, Lisa, but also with other leaders across maritime industry and beyond, and people who are willing to share not just their successes. Lisa, you didn't just we never spoke about your success, but we just spoke about your experiences. you know your success is for people to feel,
Yes.
but your experiences is what we want to hear. you know and for all of you who are listening to Lisa, if you know someone whose story deserves to be heard, you know and you'd like to be part of a future conversation, I would love to hear from you and everyone that's listening. Until next time, Lisa said this: stay curious, keep learning, and as we say at the bridge, every great career begins with a great conversation. Every leader has a story, but every story has a lesson. And until next time, let's keep building our bridge. Take care, and I'll see you all on the next bridge. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.